Hardcore Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you. I'm your Wednesday night host here at BodyBags. It is week 354. It's what we call Label Week. And this week our focus is on Synapse. And so my pick this week is from 1989, Scott Spiegel's film Intruder. And how about that artwork? Now, I think I'm just going off on a limb. I think 88 Films put out an edition where the artwork looked pretty sweet too. But there's, I've always been a fan of the original VHS cover that I would have rented as a kid in the early 90s, which, just shows a specific character and the shadow that emanates like a monster form of that character. I don't know, it was just pretty cool, but man, artwork like that doesn't get any better. That's pretty sick. And inside the artwork is one is sort of I'd say a POV shot or whatever. It's just a scene from the movie or whatever. It's it's a Blu-ray DVD disc, and so that's what this Synapse looks like. It's pretty cool. Man, Intruder. What a way to say goodbye to the 80s. I always think, as the 80s are starting to pass on, in 87 you got Stage Fright. What an incredible slasher from Italy, Michele Soavi film. But then in 87, right, you got this little film, Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn, that just explodes seemingly out of nowhere. And from that group right there, whether we're talking K&B, Berger, Nicotero, and Kurtzman, who were there doing the makeup effects, special effects in Evil Dead 2, both Sam, both Ted, their relationship to Scott Spiegel, who co-wrote the script for Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn, it just seemed like a natural progression, to move from there 2 years later in 89. You got Scott Spiegel, who has an opportunity to go back to an earlier Super 8 film that he did entitled Night Crew and expand on that idea. Now, outtakes from Night Crew can be found on the extras on the Synapse. Only the outtakes. Unfortunately, he let a friend borrow the original Super 8 of Night Crew. It was a 20-minute film. Basically, this, the genesis of what we have for Intruder is found in that 20-minute film, which the outtakes, though, do give you a pretty decent view into what it would have been like to watch that entire 20-minute film. It's actually pretty cool, where you have the killer sort of stage fright-esque. You find the killer is able to get into the grocery store via the act of one of the employees inside, who's bringing, unbeknownst to the others inside, he's basically taking a few cases of beer out of there and throwing them to the back of his car. He gets knocked off, the killer gets inside, and we'll have one or two set pieces. The bandsaw scene from this. Now, let me just say this. It's alternatively, it's a little bit different in the 20-minute film Night Crew. How they expand on that special effects sequence, compliments of K&B, is nothing short than, man, it is one of the most awesome special effects sequences maybe in any film, man. You think of the buzzsaw scene, from Absurd, and or just the drill bit scene from Gates of Hell. It's pretty intense, man, the work they put into that. And these guys basically did it for free, K&B meaning. I think they got paid $700 each. That basically covered the material, some of the costs they needed. And but it ought to be said that Intruder is K&B's very first film as a company, so there was a bit of a, scratch our back, we'll scratch yours, the relationship between K&B and Scott Spiegel. He really needed to get off his feet with a film. They needed, as a company, to get off their feet with a film, and the two basically helped each other out. Really, in terms of narrative, plot structure, I'm not going to go too far in because, quite frankly, it is, if you've never seen it, it really needs to be enjoyed, hopefully cold, hopefully without knowing who the main antagonist is. Basically, you have this grocery store it really is in its original title, Night Crew. You get this, basically this grocery store has gone out of business. The co-owners have decided to basically sell the business, and so they're basically going out of business. They break the news to the crew, the Night Crew, who really has been an integral part of that store for a couple of years, closely knit relationships. And for the most part, we do see those relationships come through pretty good in terms of, as far as a low-budget movie and whatnot goes. They do a pretty good job within the constraint of time effect. But the minute that news breaks out, you've got sort of a subplot going on involving one of the girls there and an ex-boyfriend who's just gotten out of jail, who's harassing her. But then you get our main antagonist props up and starts knocking people off in pretty creative ways, considering we just had a whole decade of slashers, right? What could you do different? Well, being that it's set in a grocery store, which goes back to Scott Spiegel's early days as a kid. He worked in a supermarket. A lot of that, I worked in a supermarket. I have to tell you, man, watching this movie, in '89, a lot of the things that you see, the nuances of the film that you see the actors as workers in the store do, I remember, man, as a kid, the old ticket gun to mark prices on things, things falling off the shelf without knowing why they fell off the shelf, just all the nuances of a grocery store and how that works, and really all the nooks and crannies of a grocery store and the opportunities that it unveils for someone to make a horror film, man. I'm telling you, there are places to hide that you can't even dream of if you're unfamiliar, not with just a layout of the store, but where the offices are, the back rooms, where all the coolers are and stock supply, with all that stuff. And for as small of a little supermarket as this is, still, I mean, everything's plausible for me. In fact, they used an old shut down grocery store to actually film. And so when I see the layout and I see how things are done, I can tell two things. One, they cared. Two, Scott Spiegel actually did work in a grocery store because I worked in a grocery store. And so a lot of this stuff, man, the creative kill scene. So really at the center of the plot there, really you have this something is just run amok in the store, and they are knocking any and everyone off. And you got a major red herring in there, maybe one or two. You got Elizabeth Cox and Renée Estevez, two of the main lead girls. Dan Hicks from crossover from Evil Dead 2. Of course, Bobby Joe, that guy's in there. Sam and Ted Raimi are both in this. Bruce Campbell has a cameo towards the end, which is pretty cool. Tons of POV shots, man. Scott Spiegel had fun with this movie. You even got a POV shot from the perspective of a POV. I mean, what he does with the camera, they're just having fun, and it comes freaking through in just amazing ways. It's loaded. It's got the commentary with Scott and the producer to the film. There's a great it's a 2K restoration from the original director's cut, whatever. The commentary, you've got a making of Intruder, which is a really great, which gets into the whole Evil Dead 2 connection, the relationships between these guys, and how that sort of spills over into the making of Intruder. The introduction of K&B as this is their first film. Is really, really, really good stuff. It's a great documentary. It's one of the better ones that I've seen in a while, actually. Some of the outtakes, I think there's outtakes on here, and trailers, of course. An original trailer, when it was initially thought to be known as Night Crew, I guess, is on there. And then, guy who wrote a letter into Fango years back when I was just a kid. He gets spotlighted on here because apparently he wrote in a letter to Fango and basically complained that the VHS cut that he got from the video store was cut and all the great scenes at Gore Zone. I'm sorry, it was Gore Zone. He must have wrote the letter into Gore Zone. I thought it was Fango. But anyways, he writes a letter in, complains about it. Scott Spiegel ends up reading that letter in the magazine, And wouldn't you know it, this guy actually gets an uncut VHS copy of Intruder. I mean, that's just a great story that's highlighted on the extras. Yeah, so for week 353 all week, we're looking at Synapse in these films as they continue to drop. Some good ones. Just keep clued in. This is a fun movie. If you've never seen this movie, Mark Sjostrom, I always get it wrong. He was also is with the K&B guys. Although he'll branch off to do his own special effects. He's most notably known for the work he does on Phantasm 2, which is really, really cool. So that's a name I would have known from the early Fango days and whatnot. But killer run amok in a grocery store, swan song to the 1980s slasher decade. That was maybe one of the greatest decades ever for slashers. Innovative POV shots, creative kills, the work of K&B, and a decent story. In the backdrop and the great reveal is pretty awesome too. And I won't even hint at that, just in case you've never seen it. You really ought to see it. One little side note, before I had the Synapse, I just had the old DVD copy. I can't remember who put it out. But when the Synapse was first announced that Synapse was putting this out, I went ahead and pre-ordered this, and I gave my copy to my grocery manager who had never seen it and absolutely loved it. And there was no regret on my part, man. Everyone needs to check this film out. But the Synapse is a nice, worthy upgrade, definitely. I don't know what the 88 looks like, but this is pretty good, and the artwork is pretty outstanding. So, for 354, week 354, real quick, hopefully I got the time, but the composer, the cinematography, the composer's probably known for more. He went on to to compose films like Conan the Barbarian, Red Dawn, RoboCop, Hunt for Red October, so he kind of got up into the big leagues. The cinematographer of late has been doing some TV stuff, Prison Break, Grimm, Swamp Thing, but the highlight here, of course, is Scott Spiegel, who's gone on to be a pretty big producer. His producer at the time actually has gone on to work with Tarantino quite a bit in producing much of his films. But the main spotlight here, I think, is on K&B and their incredible work that they were able to pull off for almost near nothing, which is amazing. Amazing when you compare it up to the CGI that we have today, which really looks crappy, but a ton of money poured in, and it's just whatever. But Intruder, 1989, Scott Spiegel. Man, what a blast, what a blast. It is just a fun film, and the extras on the Synapse release make it just as fun. Man, just keep rolling along. Enjoy this week. Know that I think we have Hammer theme week coming at the end. And drop a comment, anything I said, or tell me something. Hit the like button if you like. And man, just keep on enjoying BodyBags as it rolls along. And as always, we end these things off with Go Freaking Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.